All right. Hello,
Hello?
everyone.
Going? No, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
I hate doing the hello everyone thing, so I usually don't tell people we're going live.
Yeah.
I think we are. I hate doing the opening thing. So
We live?
so when I read your name, right? We never really talk. Like before this, right? Like never really chatted on
Never.
anything. No. So like
Yeah,
so
we just discussed on Discord, I guess.
right,
So
yeah. So when I read your name, which is a funny way because I don't know how to I always pronounce it. I want to tell you how I pronounce it. I pronounce it SVS because of the subwoofer company, and I
yeah, yeah.
pronounce it TEM. So it's gonna be like a two-part. But no, what do you want to be?
System. Literally system. The reason why I actually got my name like that is because back when I was younger and I wanted to create like a PSN account, system was taken, so I just replaced the Y with a V because
Okay,
that looks sort of like it. And so, but yeah, it's system.
it's
Don't
it's
worry about
system.
the
But do you
yeah.
do you like? I don't know. Like, should I call you system? That's like a weird name. I think like.
Oh, call me Ahmed. That's my real name. What's your real name, actually?
And then there's that's not to be revealed. It's Rush. I am named after my uncle Rush Limbaugh, who I aspire to be the
Yeah,
most angry
right,
conservative
right.
podcast host. Do you know about Rush Limbaugh up there up north?
Yeah, he's like an American sort of news outlet.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
was
yeah,
on
yeah,
Fox News
yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
So he's
Yeah,
like
I
a
vaguely know that.
yeah, he's like a big Republican conservative I guess political talk show host. All right, enough
Are we
about
going to
chatting.
go into
I'll
a
call you.
political debate?
Okay, so what do
Yeah,
you want? Do you
anyways.
want to introduce yourself or do you want like a Rush introduction?
I mean, sure, I'll introduce myself. My
Okay.
name's System. I have this blog on the internet. I listen to headphones. Um, and yeah, that's basically it. I'm from Canada. I'm a student,
Wow.
I guess.
Two Canadians in a row. That's quite. We're bridging
Yeah,
bridging the gap between the border.
not bad for Fox News.
Okay, so as I said before the show, we're starting by the way. Welcome to episode 5, season 2 of the Audio Discourse podcast. Now we're officially starting. Except I've been streaming for about like the past 2 minutes, so and we're not gonna cut the beginning out. It was just whatever. So as I said, we never really talk like one on one, like really, because like I remember
Yeah,
like before I invited you on, I checked our last message. It was like June of like 2 years ago or something like that, which is like pretty hilarious.
really.
Yeah.
I
So
forgot about that.
yeah. Um. So let me. Why don't I just give you the Rush introduction too? This is Systematic Sound. He has a blog on the internet and it's great. You guys should go search it up on Google. I'm sure you're the first one that pops up. He is I know him for his famed HG6 review, which is probably the one that everybody should go read. Um, the reason I have you on is because I feel like though that we never talked, I feel like we agree on a lot of things that we really shouldn't because and you're a very reasonable guy and I am anything but reasonable. Um, and
That's
like
not true.
what brought this on is that when I was still in my cave and not like returning to the world of this audio, um, I found you selling your pair of FW10000 on HiFi. I
Mhm.
found your HiFi listing and I messaged Kerry. Was like, hey, isn't that the Canadian guy that has the HE6? Isn't that the HE6 guy? And he's like, yeah. He's going through a bunch of single DD IEMs. I'm like, oh boy, that sounds fun because I did the same thing when I just before I quit and I kind of gave up. And
Mhm.
you just recently got something very exciting. You wanna tell people about?
Sure. So, as part of my single DD exploration phase, I ended up purchasing this pair of IMs. They're called the Dita Dream,
Hence the
and
hence
they're
the title of the podcast.
yeah, there we are. I mean, I don't know. Single DDs are always very interesting for me because they almost have this niche sound to them. They're never tuned quote unquote properly. And I mean, texturally and just in terms of the characteristics of the driver, I feel like they all differ so much, at least in the flagship realm. So yeah, I mean, I've gone through quite a few of them. I've gone through, at least I started off with like stuff like GR07, then Zalentos, then like Campfire Atlas, JVC FW10000. I've heard the Dunu Luna, the Final A8000, now this Dita Dream, and so I'm just running through them. But it's an interesting IEM. I'm sure we have some points to discuss about it.
Have you heard the Blonde 03 yet, which is legend to be the best single DD IEM in the
Of
world?
course. I mean, it's not just the best single DD IEM in the world; it's the greatest IEM in the world.
Of
Come
course,
on.
for a cheap price of $30, right?
Yeah, it's world class.
Uh, Um, it's funny because like you also have the Z1R, right?
I do.
And you still have it, right?
Yeah, I purchased it. You know that it was like that addicted to audio sale
Mm-hmm.
that they had in Australia,
Okay.
like in 2019, I
Oh,
think,
yes,
for
yes.
Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
They were like super cheap. They were like 1,600 Australian dollars.
Oh, yeah.
So I bought mine from there, and I still have it, and I'm still very impressed with it.
Yeah,
So
that's quite a good
it's a
deal.
good idea.
I still think it holds up to today's competition. Not that I know because I don't do the audio thing anymore. But like let's get back to single DD, right? So
Yeah.
you probably just ran through the gauntlet and now this is your like so let's get the order straight, right? So what's the first like the above like I guess what's the first flagship single DD that you got?
First flagship single DD. Campfire Atlas.
Oh,
That
okay.
was
So let's
a
just
little while
exclude that. So actually no. Okay, so without joking, what's actually the first single DD flagship you got?
Maybe MDR 1000.
Okay,
That
okay.
was
That's more
I
okay. Yeah,
mean,
flagship back in the day, right? And after that, and just
yeah.
go through the
I
progression.
got Bear Dynamics Zalentos.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up having the Luna for a little while.
Okay, was that like
That was
that's a
interesting.
review unit, right?
Yeah, I had it, but I had it for way too long because I was procrastinating with the review. So, and I extensively listened to it. Honestly, to this day, I'm still considering it, maybe purchasing one because it sounds so different from everything.
This is when he
But
realized he's actually a Chinese boomer. Um, okay,
that's true. I mean,
after the Luna, you got the FW10000, right?
FW10000. Yeah, I had
And then
that for
now
a
the
couple
Dream,
months.
right?
Now the dream, exactly. And I auditioned the final A8000 as well, but that's not really remarkable. I wasn't enamored with it. I expected more from it. I thought it was
No.
gonna sound like a better Luna, but
Okay.
no.
So I'm gonna put a name. I'm gonna put a name in your head right now, and you will have to go try it. I don't think it's practical. It's barely an IEM. It's called the Final Lab 2. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Of
Okay.
course.
The legendary
I
Lab
think
2.
what I don't know if I'm saying his
Yes,
name
yes.
right. AQAT, and he's pretty active on AD. I think he has like a final lab one.
No, he has
He's
a
a
Lab
big
2.
fan of
No,
it.
he has a Lab 2.
He has a lab too.
Yes.
Is it like a single BA
No, it's
type
a
of thing?
single DD, open back,
Okay,
earbud.
that's nice. That's actually making me really
It
curious.
sounds very
Um,
like bad in a good way.
no, there's no such thing as bad. It's bad
You
for
sure?
your average consumer, but for us refined taste gentlemen, it's a delicacy. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. I did hear the final FIBA SST at a show,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I felt pretty bad because the guy was pretty enthusiastic about showing it. It was like the final rep. Super nice guy. Forgot his name, and he was excited to show it to me. And I think that's one of the worst IEMs I've heard. Price no object out of
Right.
anything. It was
Um,
the grainiest thing ever.
final die with the Lab 2. So like Lab 2 is their last good IEM that I have ever made. So like after that
Okay.
it's just gone. Like but like Lab 2 is in itself being, about 2.5 grand is definitely not something that anybody should buy because it has no use case in itself being open back.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
definitely something to try
That's
if you like single DD.
2.5 grand. Are they like affordable in the used market at all, or
They're
the type
about
of
two
thing?
and a half grand in the used market. I think they're discontinued.
That's expensive.
Yeah, that is quite
But it's not
pricey.
like that,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's not gonna be like that subtonic 4.5 grand IEM.
Oh,
That
we're not doing a subtonic mention every single. Okay, so you just got the dream. Let's get back on track. You just got the
yeah,
dream.
sure.
Are you dreaming a dream right now?
Well, I mean, the dream has some good parts and some worse parts,
Worst
I
parts.
guess. Um, yeah. There's well, some things that are good is that it's a very technical single DD IEM. So when I'm talking about like sort of fringe FR tuning, it's like very V-shaped, and the driver is very quick. It's not that resolving, but the detail retrieval is impressive. The ability to convey dynamic contrast is almost top tier, not quite, but very good. The staging is sort of blown out for an IEM, so it can sound very impressive. Um, I guess the main issues with it, and I'm not sure if it's more of like an FR or a timbre kind of thing, but it just sounds kind of grainy and metallic in some ways, like
It
almost like it
does.
has
It's the
IOs
tuning.
being turned
It's
off.
usually like it's like the driver characteristic. I don't think they can get away from it. I had a dream
Hmm.
for I want to say like 3 4 months before I'm selling it. Not because of the sound.
Yeah.
I love the sound of the dream just because okay. What music do you usually listen to?
Oh, so lots of stuff. I mean, I listen to lots of jazz. I listen to some classical. I listen to hip hop, EDM. I listen to indie rock as well. Just sort of all over the place, to be honest.
So
And it also depends on the context. Like if I'm at home relaxing, it's usually going to be jazz. Whereas if it's my car in rush hour traffic, I'm bumping Project Pat, which is sort of different. But I listen to all sorts of music.
okay, so I am of the opinion that that if you listen to anything that does not have a vocal with the dream,
Hmm.
it will sound relatively okay, like very good, I guess. I think like the problem with
Yeah.
it is like just the lower mid is it's quite strange, and then like the upper
Yeah.
mid sounds very robotic, just because I think it's not from the tuning, just from the characteristic of the driver.
It's yeah, and I agree with you because it's not that tilted towards the upper mids
No, it's
in
not.
terms of tuning. I mean, I've heard. Let's say we talk about the FW10K, which has more upper mids, in
Oh,
my opinion.
that's my
Like the
favorite
bounce
single
is
DD.
it's a good IEM, and the FW10000 has more of a richness to its timbre. It's like a bit softer. It's the decay stays for a bit longer. There's less of an edge to it. So even though there's more upper mids, it sounds less harsh in the mids than the Dream does.
Oh yeah.
But it's always like a trade-off, to be honest, because once you start adding more decay, you start, blunting the attack a little bit. Sure, it's going to sound more satisfying, but you're gonna sort of compromise technicals, at least in my opinion. It's like
Right.
it's always like sort of one or the other.
And like I don't, and honestly, like what ultimately leads me to selling the dream is that it has nothing to do with the sound signature, because all I listen to are just like weeaboo screaming musics, which has like very little vocal, nor are the vocal very realistic. But like
Yeah,
I feel like there's just so much more like user annoyances that you have with the dream. Like the cables are
right.
awful. Like the cables, like they are
It is. Oh my
notoriously
God,
awful.
it's horrendous.
I know,
It's
yeah,
sort of like twist on itself,
yeah,
and it has lots of memory. It's surprising they call it the awesome cable.
which is not.
Uh,
It's the sound, like So I don't know if you have like a spare 2-pin cable and like that fits on the Dream, which not all 2-pin cable does because they have a weird 2-pin on the Dream. It does
really.
not sound the same without that cable, which is kind of weird, right? Believe on the cable thing or not, like it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
really matter.
we're
We're not
getting
gonna delve into
controversial
that.
here.
Um,
Yeah.
but like yeah, it's really annoying. Like at the cable, as I mentioned, like it has driver flex. Some units does. it's known to have a driver imbalance, which is quite awful,
Yeah.
and the filter is notoriously awful, and it sometimes it pop off, and you have to like email like
Really?
yeah. So like there's that the filter is pretty much a sticker. So if you
Hmm.
so like if you like the older units, you have to like put new filters on, which is what I
Yeah.
did with my Dream. But then like the filter that
Hmm.
I sent me are a little bit bigger than the one that they had. So like it's
Okay.
just so it's quite annoying, honestly. Just that like not like I have no complaint about the sound, honestly, but it's just like the
Yeah.
user annoyances that really like bugs me. And I don't really want
Yeah.
that, on an IEM.
What did you end up sort of replacing it with then,
Uh
if you were complaining about the user annoyances?
the biggest regret of my life, which I would probably not talk. Like I bought the F
Or was it the F Audio Major?
yeah, I bought the major, which was not what it sound like it should. That's
Yeah.
the other thing. You never tried the F audio stuff, right?
No, and I was actually considering it because I often scour like Rakuma and Yahoo Auctions and that sort of stuff from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So you see lots of like Japanese domestic market IEMs on there. And the F Audio stuff is surprisingly cheap. I think there was a major recently that went for like 60,000 yen, which is like 560 US dollars,
Right.
which is not much.
sixty
And
thousand
you know, it
yen.
makes
The major's like $800. I think you read the number wrong.
really. Is it 800 like used or brand
Eight
new?
hundred used. Brand new is like it's about like 1,500 new.
Okay. Wow. Oh, the MSRP is higher than I thought.
Yeah. It's quite expensive. But I think they recently came out with a dark sky, whatever they call it, and the FR looks pretty
Yeah.
okay. But people were telling me that it doesn't sound good. So I'm not on the IEM market anymore. Obviously, you are. So maybe that's something you can look out for.
Somewhat, somewhat. I mean, I'm also I used to commute a lot through public transport, and that sort of fed my desire to purchase IEMs. But ever since I'm commuting with the car, I'm using IEMs quite a bit less. It's mostly like bringing them along if I'm gonna work in a cafe or library or something like that.
Okay.
And when you're working and not really paying attention to the music, you sort of appreciate things a bit less. So I'm still into IEMs. I still enjoy them, but I'm not as gung ho as I was a little while ago. But I don't know if you're into earbuds by any chance,
No,
like
no, not at
like
all,
open
because
back
they're
earbuds.
quite. I mean, like if I'm putting something in my ears, I might as well just do IEMs, right?
Yeah, yeah. And they're typically like we think of them as pretty compromised because there is no seal. Obviously, they have like a small sort of dynamic driver firing outside the ear, but that's something that has been sort of intriguing me because we talk about outlandish FR and weird sonic differences and whatnot. It seems like sort of unexplored territory if we're talking about earbuds.
Well, I mean, like
I actually ended up,
the form
yeah.
factor itself is bad, just because you can literally get no bass from it, right? So you're missing part of the frequency.
Yeah, and they sort of fall out. I mean, I don't know if you tried like Yinkrau's the X6, that Chi-Fi
We, we,
that
we
ten
don't
dollar
talk about
earbud.
Chi-Fi on the show.
Well, we did discuss the BLO3, which is the greatest IEM in the world, but I
that
digress.
was that was a joke. That was a joke.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But I ended up purchasing. So I had this sort of trip with Sony Biocellulose offerings,
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't know, they had this thing with biocellulose in the 80s to 90s to early 2000s,
Famously, the
and
R10.
they came out with yeah. No, I want the R10. That's like the headphone I'm
You, you
sort of
you can now you
chasing.
can
It's
now
really
buy a HiFiMAN R10 for a cheap price with $5,000.
$5,000, which is what you'd spend for like a real Sony R10, which I find kind of funny. But the thing is, anyway, they made some headphones, which I can discuss. That's actually one of them, the CD 1700 with biocellulose. But they ended up making an earbud at the end. It's called the MDR E888, and it has a biocellulose driver. And I purchased it out of curiosity, and it actually sounds a bit less compromised than your typical earbud. I mean, the FR and it's no bass and whatnot, but in terms of resolution and the way it presents mid-range, it feels like there's maybe something more than we initially thought. And there's like this market for like $200 to $300 sort of flagship earbuds, and I'm just wondering what's out there.
Well,
So anyway.
Audio Technica has one of their earbuds that's about like, I want to say
Oh
like,
yeah, I tried it. I tried it. It's so bad.
I know, like I
It's
think
so
that's what
bad.
everybody have told me when I mentioned that
Mhm.
earbuds, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's horrible.
okay.
It's like worse than the $10 Hi-Fi one. It's actually worse than that one.
Well, funny enough, they use the same driver. It's like a very like it's a giant driver. It's like a 14.5 millimeter driver, and that's what they
Mhm.
use on their hybrid IEM, which is like apparently like what people would call it like the IER Z1R clone. And that IEM turned out to be trash as well. So like, yeah, I really don't have hopes of Audio Technica when it comes to like portable audio, honestly. Um, but now going back
Yeah.
to like the conversation about single DDs in an IEM.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I feel like why are you so set on this like this driver configuration with the single DD? Obviously you have a hybrid, but like
Yeah. And I think that hybrids have potential to be less compromised than single DDs. Single DDs have that issue with sort of FR. It's like the number one thing. They seem harder to tune for some reason. They have less treble extension. The treble resolution is not as good as a lot of those like, BA super tweeters or
yeah,
EST
exactly.
super tweeter.
Yeah.
But the reason why, so there's like this trend in the IEM market recently. I don't know how it started, but lots of IEM manufacturers, will make hybrids, release them every month, and sort of target this same FR with like a subshelf, this like pin again, which is always repetitive, and they all sort of sound same-ish, in a
Right.
way. And then you have those IEMs, which so first of all, like those hybrids often use like off-the-shelf drivers. So they all, all those NALs BAs have sort of similar timbral characteristics and whatnot. Of course, they're tuned differently, and there's room for improvement. But those DDs are oftentimes like made in-house from scratch, with FR that has some quirks that can bite you. That's not necessarily, always correct, but they all sound so different, not only in terms of their FR, but their textural and timbral characteristics, even their staging abilities, that I feel like, when you have a single DD IEM coming in the mail, you're never really sure what it's going to sound like. You're not 100% sure what to expect. And they always end up having this sort of X factor to them. So, for example, if I look at the Luna, they use this beryllium driver, and the tuning is all kinds of messed up. The bass extension is somewhat missing. The there's no upper treble. The upper mid range is tuned, let's say, fringe, but in terms of the driver itself, just in terms of its transient characteristics, the attack is so incredibly sharp. The dynamic contrast is huge, like both micro and macro. You have pretty good resolution. The timbre is like this sort of metallic, gritty kind of thing, and it just works really well on some music. It's completely going to fail on some other things, but it sort of doesn't leave you indifferent, and that's really the way I feel. Like I listen to, for example, I listened to this Empire Ears Odin, which is like a $4,000 or $3,000 IM or something, and they tune it with like this DD and BA or EST. I forgot what the hell it is, but you listen to it and you come out of it like sort of indifferent in a way. Like, oh, there's this nice bass with the woofer, and then you have this BA mid range, which is tuned the same as a bunch of other hybrids, and this EST treble, I guess, and you're just sort of okay, sounds good, but you're not, it doesn't really strike you in any way. So that's why single DDs were always really interesting to me, at least over the past sort of couple months, years.
So like am I getting at that you kind of appreciating like the engineering side of the things more than like just like more of a user standpoint, like how good an IEM sounds kind of thing?
For sure, yeah, and I mean the engineering standpoint is always fascinating, I find. And it's always cool to see the work that went behind it. But it's really just the fact that they have standout characteristics
Like
and are
really
not sort
bad.
of
You're really bad tuning. That's what you meant, right?
bad tuning or like the driver characteristics. That's mostly what impresses me out of them because
That it
they
sounds bad and like it has roll off on both end of the FR.
well, I'm really into flavors. If you sort of know like my way of purchasing stuff and enjoying stuff, like I'm never really into all rounders. That's why my collection is very stupid. But yeah, I think they all have their different flavors and they all sound so different. And they sound special in their own way, and we can go at length at each one of them if you want.
No, I
But
mean
I
like
think that's
I
interesting.
think they're all like you're right, and they're all special in their own way. And out of all the
Hmm.
like all the expensive single, like let's just get it clear, right? So, um, we're not talking about like $20 DDs. We're talking about like literally $1,000 DDs where its own manufacturer makes its own dynamic drivers. And I think
Yeah,
like like obviously like Dunu makes their own drivers and like FW like JVC does,
yeah.
and so did like the driver that's made for Dita was just for the Dream. Um,
Hmm.
and you're right in a way. Well, you are right. They all have their quirks, and some have more quirks than the others, and it's just the things that you're willing to live with. But like,
Hmm.
um, I I don't like from a maybe from your standpoint that you like the quirkiness of it, but from like I think for like a normal, not saying you're not normal, but from like a general user perspective, I feel like single DD is very compromising in like you can't have an all rounder single DD in terms of a
I agree.
flagship, right?
I agree.
So
I
like
agree.
you might like the timbre or whatever from the Dunu Luna, but it has roll off on both ends, right? You might like,
Exactly.
you might like the timbre on the FW10K, but it doesn't have bass, right? You can have bass on both ends. You can have bass and highs on the Dita Dream, but the timbre is awful.
There you go.
So like
So it's
okay.
lots of trade-offs.
Yeah.
It's lots of trade-offs. And if you told me you have to purchase a single IEM, and live with that single IEM, I wouldn't purchase a single DD.
So what would
I
be
would buy
your
like the
would it be
oh
your
Z1R.
Z1R?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
for
So
sure.
yeah, so like we're getting to the point that, probably hybrid is definitely the future. When it comes to IEMs, right?
It is. If again, if you're like 99% of people, hybrid is the future. But I don't want like single DDs to sort of languish and die and manufacturers stop making them because there's no demand for them. I think they deserve a place in the market, and they might look a bit antiquated, and a lot of people might be turned away by them. But I have sort of a soft spot for them. So
Oh,
yeah, but if for sure, like hybrids are less compromised overall.
I don't think that like I don't think like the drivers will be phased out of existence just because you still have a big DD in a hybrid, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I think like a lot of people do prefer a single DD just because it's very coherent.
yeah,
From a standpoint that it only has one driver, so the timbre
yeah.
across the whole entire frequency sounds relatively the
It's
same,
messed up.
right? And
It's all messed up.
right, it's kind of hard to mess up in terms of like the timbre part, like just consistency part. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so now that you have tried all these single DDs. Obviously, you never really have them at the same time. Um,
No.
and please don't say the Dulu Luna. If I would ask you to get one right now to keep forever, which one would you keep?
If I could only have one,
Yeah.
and am I allowed to have other IEMs that are hybrids and whatnot, or like
Well, just to settle with a single DDIM. You can have other stuff. So this is the only single DD that you will have.
If I were to settle with it, and sort of live with it, I mean, the least compromised single DD IEM I heard is probably the JVC FW10K.
Thank you, thank you. I'm glad we
That'll
have reached
probably
the
be the
right
one.
conclusion.
I mean, it's the least messed up, and it does have some, like, I see Carib has mentioned that, but X Factor. It does have X Factor. It has some compromises, but not as glaring as like the Luna or the Dream or the A8000 or even the X1000. So yeah, FW10000 I was pleased with. A lot of people might be scared by its FR graph, but I think it doesn't sound as aggressive or as outlandish as the FR graph
Are
makes it
you
look.
sure about that? Are you sure about 15 dB peaking at 2K is the correct way to do Peanut Game?
Well, I'm not saying it's the correct way. It's just you look at the graph and you expect it to be thinner than it actually is.
It's not thin.
Because there is like I find there is a bit of a lower mid-range bump. Then it sort of recesses around 1K, and that on a graph makes that Pina gain looks huge, like bigger than it actually is. Sure, it sounds upper mid-range tilted, but again, like talking about the timbral characteristics, it has decay, it has some smoothness, it has like some softness to the attack. It's not really grainy. So you're like making it sound softer overall. It's not as aggressive
Depends
as the
on what
graph
you
makes it
listen
out.
to. Like I don't know. Have you don't do you listen to like any like weeaboo musics on the FW10K before, which is what it's made for?
Um, Not really weeaboo music. There's, I guess, female vocals I listen to.
No, like
Like
J-pop vocal, like a lot of throat voice, not a lot
I
of head
listen
voice,
to
right?
some like Japanese city pop from the 80s.
That's no,
I don't
that's
know
not
if you
like now you
listen
know
to that.
like so you know okay. So you know how like a singer have like head, throat, and chest voice, right?
Yep.
With the J-pop music, that's a lot of throat voice, which is what the FW10K like accentuates. So
Excels that.
so when you play that kind of music, it sounds like she's like screeching in your ears, which
Okay.
a lot of people love because that's their favorite idol singer.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't tried that, but I'm open to different experiences, I guess. But like even without that kind of music, I thought it sounded pretty good with jazz. I thought it was really good, and like the staging is sort of an X factor for it because it's so huge. It's probably the biggest stage I've heard in an IEM. And sure, we laugh at soundstage. Oh, it's a noob trap. Noobs always want soundstage, whatever. But it's like I don't know. It's kind of jarring to listen to in an IEM format. So I was very pleased by it. The FR is not too crazy. The timbre is really good. The resolution is really good. You're saying it has no bass, but I find like there is a bit of decay and
There's
it
no like
extends fairly
base
well down there.
quantity. There's quality to it, right? Um,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
I I think like it's the best all around IEM like in a single DD form factor, but like
Hmm.
it's still not. This is the best that we can get for now, I guess. And that
For
IEM's
now.
kind of old. So why did you sell it? Why did you sell the FW10K, the best single DD IEM in the world?
Because I'm cycling through them, essentially. Like I wanted to try the Dream next, and like if you're gonna cycle through a bunch of IEMs that are each worth like a grand each, you're gonna end up having like $4,000 or $5,000 of gear just sitting there. So I usually like bought one, sold it, moved on to the next one, sold it, moved on to the next one. And it's not like I have a massive budget. I mean, I'm still a student, so it doesn't make much financial sense to just purchase them all.
I mean, like having only 7 reviews on your blog does not really help you as a reviewer. I think.
It's not much. It's not much, and like it's kind of unfortunate because I don't know. I've listened to lots and lots of things, but I sort of keep the impressions in my head or just randomly discuss them out of nowhere on Discord and never really formally put my head down and write about them. I guess it's just the fact that I'm sort of OCD with my reviews. in the sense that I don't want to say something that I'm gonna look back at months from there and think, oh, that was wrong, or write something that is misleading. And so I spend like much more time than I should, essentially on my reviews, and that sort of discourages me to write them. But at the same time, like the reception, I'm always very like flattered and humbled by the reception because people really seem to enjoy them, and that encourages me
Yeah.
to put them out.
Go ahead.
But it's like takes a lot of time. That's the main issue, and I have like a pretty busy schedule overall.
Yeah, and I do like and for I'm sure that anybody who's watching this like somehow haven't seen your blog. I feel like the must review from your blog. If I have to pick one thing that I and I don't read reviews, right? And I would say it's probably the Dunu. I'm just kidding, huh? That fucking piece of shit. I'm probably the HE6 review. So now I think that's like a good segue. This is like a segue I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
You still have your HE6, right?
I do.
So
I do.
how many HE6 do you have currently?
One.
What's the most amount of HE6 have you had at one point? Like would it be like loaner unit just happened to pass on your hand? What's the most amount of HE6 that's in your house at one point?
4. For the purpose of my review, mostly. But right now I'm down to 1. I sort of kept my favorite one because again, it doesn't make much financial sense to own a bunch. But yeah, I settled on an early 4-screw pair, which ended up being my favorite one. But honestly, this was such a weird thing. I wasn't planning on writing a review, by the way. When I was initially going through my phase of like HE6s, the thing is there was always like this talk online about HE6 4-screw is the best thing ever, and the 6-screw is kind of a joke, and you should aim for the 4-screw. It's the best thing ever. Anyway, I started off owning a 6-screw, and I saw a friend who had a 4-screw for trade, who we ended up sort of trading. His 4-screw was really beat up. My 6-screw was mint, so it was like sort of an even trade. I tried the 4-screw. It sounded different, but not necessarily better. So then I just started purchasing every HE6 that I can find to sort of A and B them. And then, after realizing how much time and money I had wasted, I was like, I need to come out with something. So I ended up writing this very long article about them. And sort of the point of this article is that don't fall into the hype, because a lot of times like the rarer older thing becomes more popular, I guess because it's more difficult to access, and people create this sort of mystique around it, and that rises values up, and oftentimes people just parrot what others are saying because they haven't tried it themselves. And so my point was sort of to deconstruct things how they actually are, and discuss them, and have like sort of a rational outlook. So yeah, essentially 4-screw is not necessarily better than 6. HE6 is the greatest headphone on earth. No, I'm just kidding. I really love this headphone.
I think it is. I mean, let's not say the greatest headphone on earth. Let's say
yeah, I'm just messing around.
let's say the best headphone that HiFiMAN ever produced and will ever produce.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because the Sysvera, I think, is also a very good headphone, and it really comes out to taste at that point. The HE6 has more aggressiveness. It's more gritty. It's more dynamic. It's a bit wonkier in its frequency response. It doesn't have as much resolution, but it just sounds very raw, very punchy, very engaging to listen. Whereas the Sysvera is sort of more refined. It's not as dynamic. It's not as punchy. It's not as raw. It's a lot smoother texturally. It's a lot more resolving. The stage depth is really impressive. The detail retrieval is top tier. This thing with Planars is that for me, they often have this sort of grain or harshness in the treble, even if they're dark. Like an LCD2 for me is grainy in the treble, even though it's dark. and you listen to the Sisvera and you're like, this is bright, but it's not metallic or grainy or anything like that. So I think it does a lot of things really well, and it really comes out to what kind of listener you are. For me, the HE6 hits my preferences a little more, so I prefer it, but I wouldn't say it's like objectively better than a Sisvera. Some people will find that to be the case, but not necessarily me.
I think like Dr. Fang Biang of HiFiMAN really made something
Dr.
special,
Bien.
or like Legend had it, he didn't really made the HE6, but when he released it, it was just about the only planar headphone in the world that has bass, which is not something that you can say about any other planar, I feel like. Um,
Um, there's quite a few planars of bass, I find. I've ran through.
I mean, like not just along all the other HiFiMAN offerings, and most of the
Yeah.
LCDs that I have ran through all the way up to 2018. And like again, I haven't tried really a lot of planars just because I don't agree with its form factor, but or its timbre or its correctness when it comes to sound. But
Hmm.
like I think like I think like for me, who is like a Chinese boomer, not at heart.
Likewise.
Um, I believed in like the HD6 just because like everybody in the Chinese community really loved that headphone, and it just sounds so different, you know. Like if you were to
It
compare the
does.
HD6 to the current HiFiMAN lineup, sorry, my bad. The current
Oh,
HiFiMAN lineup, like it sounds completely different, and
don't just
it
get me
stands out
started.
as their like the headphone for them.
Yeah, it does for me as well. And yeah, modern hi-fi man has. I sort of touched on that on my review as well, but it seems like they've sort of abandoned this grit, this aggression that their headphones had for something that's like softer and
Yeah, it's
faster and
safer.
maybe more resolving, but not as safer. Exactly. Um, and I don't know if you've heard the HE6 SCV2.
I have not. I do not want to hear it.
I'm gonna, yeah. I sort of had high hopes for it before listening to it because, I mean, from afar, the driver sort of looks different. You have a thin nanometer diaphragm, you have a gold trace, you have a magnet array that looks basically similar, and it was very well received by a lot of people. But when I heard it, I was so incredibly disappointed. I think it's gonna go against the grain, I find, but they discounted it from like $1,800 MSRP to $700, and I feel like at $700, this constant on sale status is a complete noob trap. I find. I think this headphone is not even worth a price of $700 new. Um, it's got lots of issues, and I think the fact that they named it HE6 is almost like a marketing ploy because
It
it
is.
has so little in common with that headphone. And I find that very unfortunate because in a way it sort of taints the HE6. But anyway, I can sort of go at length of the about the differences. But I mean, it's thinner texturally. It's uh, has better resolution. It The other problem is the frequency response is a lot wonkier. It has some weird bumps and dips in the mid range, and followed by this big lower treble spike. It sounds than it is. Just one sec.
No problem. Do do. Oh, I can't do the intermittent music. Wait, that's like that's the Jeopardy music, right? Do 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 do. Yeah, that's why you don't come into a podcast and do it in your house, cause like in the living room. I think it's like in the living room. It's kind of funny. All right. We're not cutting this out, by the way. I'm just gonna wait for it to come back, like the rest of you guys. Should I go answer some questions that we had from before? Talk about Filphone in the pause. I have always offered Phil to come on the show with me, but he doesn't want to because he has a restraining order against me. Oh, he's back.
I'm back.
I was talking about my restraining order.
Restraining order against Phil?
No, well he had one against me, so
Whoa.
yeah, unfortunate. Okay,
What did
so
you do, Rush?
nothing.
Sorry about the renovations.
Oh, no problem. I mean, like,
That's
you know,
that's inconvenient.
so like I feel like I never hear the HC6 SE, nor do I want to, just because I think I want to, again, like everybody in China loves the HC6. Like if you are like a Chinese boomer who like you know, grew up the same time that HiFiMAN did, like like my dealer in China, that the local audio shop in my hometown, he has an HC6 setup who sets up to like some vintage speaker amps. That it's like, that's my opinion of the HC6. Like
That's
right.
yeah.
And it's like that's like everybody like dream HC6 setup, right? And like that's the one that I hear all the time because like I always go to the shop when I'm in China. And I was like, wow, these sounds so good. And those are my first Planar headphones. And I never really hear any other HiFiMAN lineup before. Yeah. Those are my, and it's so weird because like before I hear any other like the HG1 or the Susvara or any of their lower lineups, I always thought that, oh, you going in expecting what a Planar is supposed to sound like, which is when your bass line is HC6. It's so disappointing. I feel like it's so, you almost don't feel like, you know, like I mean at some point like HiFiMAN had a turning point in its like production that they trying to appeal to more audience by making more of a neutral tuning, right?
Yeah.
So and
just softer sounding, more resolving, I guess. Mind.
Well, I mean, like better. I don't think it's not like for a wider audience. I think the HG1000 sounds way better than the HG6.
Oh yeah.
But if you want bass, you know, if you want bass on a Planar, then you get HG6, which is like the best, like the most characteristic Planar that you can still get today on the market.
Yeah. I think it really, it sounds different from Planars. I mean, I haven't heard
you're cutting out.
AB1256 or Diana, but apparently those have good bass. LCD4 had pretty good bass, I found. Not as, you know, I mean, I felt like it was punchy, it was really dynamic. It maybe didn't have the grit of an HC6, but I thought that was a good Planar. What else did I hear? I heard D8000 Pro, that wasn't good. Sorry. I heard Empyrean, that was really not good. HEK, Aria. HEK is decent. I mean, to an untrained ear, I find the HEK sounds richer than it actually is. If you spend a bit of time with it, you notice how like kind of thin it is, even though it's warm and everything, but it sounds sort of thin.
I mean, like, isn't that the entirety of the HiFiMAN lineup though? Like,
now it's worse. I don't know if you heard anything new that they came out with, like HE6 SEV2 or 5 SE or Sundara's even, but it's like more tilted towards that end now.
Well, I mean, like I don't have the amp for it, nor do I care about HiFiMAN, right? I feel like HE6 is their first good headphones, and I am of the opinion, which is a fact, that HiFiMAN made 2 good headphones. Well, maybe 3. Depends on how you want to count it, right? So they made the HE6, which is their probably the best headphone that they have ever made. the HE1000, which is their turning point into that neutral-ish planar timbre tuning. And before they became HiFiMAN, which is like I don't know remember what they call, but Dr. Fang Bian had another company called like I think it's called like Fang something like that. But he made the Jade 1, which is also which I believe is also a planar.
Well, HE Audio, I think that was the one.
Is that what it is?
Audio.
Okay, so
Yeah,
he made the
then
Jade 1, which is also a very good headphone. Which you probably can't hear anymore. The Jade 2 is electrostatic headphone, which sounds awful. The Jade 1 is quite impressive for its time, which is like, don't quote me on this, made in like 2002 or something like that. Something ridiculously ancient.
Way older than I thought.
Yeah,
it was like 2008 or something.
It's like way before HiFiMAN, like way before HiFiMAN time. I don't remember when, but like I've heard it once. Like somebody brought it in once. I'm like, wow, this sounds really good for being almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
But enough about HiFiMAN. Well, enough about HiFiMAN. Yes, more about HE6. No, I like. So, do you believe in the speaker amps when it comes to HE6?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have speaker amps for your HE6?
Yeah, I have a speaker amp, which, I purchased to eventually purchase speakers for, but the funny thing is I don't have any passive speakers, so this speaker amp I'm literally only using with HE6 or any other insensitive headphones that I'm planning to purchase. So it's a Bryston 4B SST squared, which is very versatile.
Shout out to the Canadian amp makers.
Shout out to them. But it's way overkill. Way overkill. But I find that, the stack I have running with the HE6, I'm very, very satisfied with. I think it sounds really good.
Oh, yeah, as you should. And, for anybody who wants to hear more about the HE6 talk, I think you say as something that you just have to wrote because you put too much into it. I would like to call it the most comprehensive HE6 review in the English language. For now, I think like I have read a lot of like the Chinese reviews, and they like there are people who like from the Chinese market who did the same comparison because it's easy for them, right? Because they have a lot of access to HE6s and like whatever the different variant. I think like for somebody who lives in the North American region, like in the West, to like take their time to like have 4 HE6 in their house, just A/Bing all those, like it takes a lot of effort, and like I feel like it's honestly like if you, like how many reviews do you have on your site? Like I want to say like what's 8 or 9?
8, like 8 or 9.
Yeah, you don't really like time is not of the of you're definitely not like on a time frame here when you're writing reviews, definitely not.
Yeah. Because that's actually why, like, on the Helios tour, I think I asked like to be last, because I usually take quite a bit of time to write those things. But it is the most comprehensively, I guess, like least compromised planar that I've heard, and it's probably my favorite headphone overall. I have a very soft spot for it. Although there's like many headphones that I do like nearly quite as much. So,
please go do like if you guys get nothing out of this podcast, please go read his HE6 review. It's absolutely excellent, and I agree with it. Closest to 100% as I could, because
I appreciate it.
It's so weird to like, again, like I don't like, this is the first time we have talked in what's the word for
in person?
well not in like for like face to face, well not face to face, but like in just like we never really talked in like a one-on-one setting before. It's usually mostly on Discord, right? With other people. And I feel like even without me like talking to you, in private, I feel like we have a lot of similar in taste. And it's kind of like a weird thing, because like this is not the same, you know. Um, all right.
Yeah, I mean, we have our differences, but our similarities as well. There's also a few other people like with whom, you know, I think my tastes or at least my assessments are very close. I don't know if you've heard of Nico, Nikko. He's like a French guy from HPHQ. He's been there for a long time.
You know, I was
Um,
banned from HPHQ.
oh, I apologize. I'm moderating it now, and
Do
I'm
do
usually the
not.
devil's advocate. I think I let more people back in than I actually banned people, which is kind of bad. But yeah. Anyways, he has this blog called Over Ear Mania, and when I read his stuff, I basically agree 100%. What I like about him is he also tries, headphones that people would usually not go out of their way and purchase and try, like weird stuff like JVC DX1000 or HiFiMAN HE4, Sennheiser HE60, that sort of stuff. So that's very good. A couple other people like I don't know if you remember Ishka from what was the name of their blog? Verum Sonus. He used to write stuff. Oh yeah, yeah.
I remember
But
I
anyway,
don't like him. I don't remember why.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, sure, you have your own thing, but anyways, there's like a couple other people that I tend to agree with a lot. So yeah, it's always cool to find someone that you sort of relate with in terms of tastes or assessments, and it's refreshing.
Um,
So
so what is so and you mentioned you want to be last on the Helios tour. I don't know what the ETA on that is. Um,
once probably.
I don't know. So like is the blog, is it like, I don't know, like, cuz like it's been like, I feel like it's been dead just because you put out so little things, right? I feel like the
Yeah.
most recent article that you have, what's the most recent article? I feel like it was like last year.
I think it was the Etymotic Evo because I actually ended up naming that thing, and I was sort of forced to write a review for it. So,
You named that thing?
well, there was this
Right, they had the
contest that
contest. That's right. That's right.
yeah, yeah, and I actually called it Evolution. I called it Evolution, and the reason why is because I was like, they're probably gonna try and peddle the Etymotion with it. I was like, Evolution, as in it's your next step for Etymotic, and Evolution Etymotion is gonna be like a nice little cute combo name. And they actually ended up calling it Evo, which sounds like almost like the Lancer Evolution car, which I'm a bit sort of iffy about. But anyways, I named it, and so they sent me the first pair like off the factory. And I don't think I wrote the review they wanted me to write. I actually, they were planning on, like the winners of the contest, they were planning to publish our reviews like on their own websites or platforms. I sent them my review, radio silence, radio silence.
I mean, like, I'm not
Um,
gonna lie to you. I didn't read that review just because
no, 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 but I essentially said it's kind of bland. Not bland, but it suffers from a bit of identity crisis. And yeah, I was not very impressed by the Evo. So yeah, I guess they expected me to write like a shill review because they gave me a free pair, and thanks to them, it's very kind. But I think it's hard to you know there's bias and everything, but when you write a review, people often are going to use that for purchase recommendations and are going to spend their hard-earned money depending on what they read. And if you mislead them into spending their money into something that you don't necessarily even believe is good, but you lie about it, I think it's unethical.
whoa,
So
whoa, whoa. Did you just say the E word? Ethics? You mean there should be ethics in audio reviews?
absolutely. Yeah,
That,
man,
that no,
people
that's ridiculous.
people spend money depending on what they read. I think we need to have a higher standard. Um, you know, with what we put out, because it can be pretty important, you know. So yeah, I like to keep it as unbiased and frank as possible. And even on the stuff that I like, I always point out all the flaws that I can find, because I think people need to make, you know, a consciously informed decision as to what they're going to spend their hard-earned money on. So yeah, the audio review were sort of a shakeup, I find. But who am I to say that? I only have like 8 articles, so I'm gonna shut up for now.
I mean, like, this is why your review hobby never took off as a career, because you're unwilling to. Again, on the IEM that you name, which is supposed to be your baby, the Edomode Evo, that you
Yeah,
yourself said that yourself who named the IEM said it does not sound good. I
it
think
sounds okay, but it's not impressive. It's not. I wouldn't buy it if I were gonna spend $500 on a new IEM.
I mean, like, I wouldn't buy any Edomotic IEMs. That's just from a tuning standpoint, but like still, you know.
Yeah.
Um. All right. I don't know. You want to go to questions? Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Sure.
So
Guys, spam us with questions. I think there were a few. There were a
um,
few at the top. I guess we can go down through them.
do you want to go through them? I am okay. Let's do the. You're drinking coffee and I'm having whiskey. So
Yeah,
I don't know
I
who's the
have.
host of this show, but why don't you go through the questions that you want to ask yourself?
Sure. Let's see. So, Phil is asking us to talk about the Filphone.
Do you have it?
I had it for about a week and then passed it on to my friend Daniel.
What do you think?
Uh, I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty well tuned. It's probably in terms of the Biodyna 50 millimeter driver headphones, it's probably the best tuned one that I've heard. You know, I've heard the
Have you
TX,
have you never heard
TX,
of 909?
I've heard the 900, not the
Okay.
909. But you know, I think it's fairly well tuned. As an open back, usually open back dynamic, mid-range centric, and this one's a bit more sort of V-shaped. So it sort of stands out in that way. And yeah, it just sounds really good. Of course, it still has like the limitations of the 50 millimeter Biodynas. So the timbre has this sort of dry character, almost like etched in a way. And you know, the resolution is nothing crazy, but dynamically speaking, I think it's really good. The bass is extremely satisfying. Staging is pretty nice. The tuning is really good, and I think for the price that he's asking, you know, you get overall a pretty good package
It's eight hundred
for
dollars now, by the way.
800. I mean, for when you think about it, like 800, sure, it's expensive for a pair of headphones. But when you think about it, what kind of headphones are available in the market for like $800 new? It's like it's sort of like a dead zone. You know what I mean? Like I guess there's like the $500 mid-fi stuff, and then there's that. I thought it was really good value for 600. I think that
Ouch.
was
You're not
the
supposed to disclose that price.
oh oh really? But anyway, it's a good headphone. I'm not gonna discuss that further. No comments. But yeah, I think he did a really good job, and it it sort of speaks a lot when you have this one guy. I really like the idea of it because you have this one guy who's like, you know, an audio enthusiast, just like you and I, who sort of mods headphones for fun, plays around with like, you know, a headphone frame and just frankenphones like a driver into it, and it sounds better than I think most things that Audio Technica have ever built,
Ouch,
which
that's
is like a
hurtful.
multi. Pardon?
That's hurtful.
That's hurtful. Yeah, sorry about that. I mean, I didn't say anything about ADX 5000. Okay.
Okay, so again, um, let's like, I'm not giving Phil like a 15-minute ad break anymore because he doesn't pay me, by the way. So if Phil, like, I know you're listening, Phil. If you want to come on the show, you're happy to show the Filphone for, you know, for however long you want to be on the show for. But if you're not, I'm not gonna have other people show your headphones. Okay, so another review that you have on your blog is the 82,000 review, which is the other review that I have read, which is quite good as well. You are one of the more original show of the 82,000. which you don't have anymore.
I still have it.
You still have it? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's special enough to keep.
Oh, I think
So
it is. And have you heard the new ADX 5000?
yes,
Do you
yes, I
not
have.
like that?
I like it. I wouldn't pay. I think it's kind of pricey though.
Oh, it's quite expensive. Yes.
It's a bit pricey for what it is. I mean, tuning wise, also, I think it sort of is on the edge when it comes to like being aggressive. It has quite a bit of trouble. And even timbrally, it's like on the harsher side. But I think it's got good technicalities. It's pretty dynamic. It's light on its feet, and it's a pretty good headphone. It's probably the best headphone that Audio Tech, to be honest.
Oh yeah,
But
definitely.
they made a lot of oddball headphones, though.
You mean really bad headphones?
Yes. I don't know. Some of them, I guess, are interesting as a flavor. Like the I don't know if you've heard the A2000, like the titanium cup ones, or like
Yeah,
the
I've heard them all. They're all really bad.
yeah. But I mean, I guess it has its appeal. Like it's super dry, it's super sharp sounding, and it has lots of upper mids, and it's just kind of an interesting flavor, I guess. But it's a lot of money to spend for just a flavor. So
I don't know why. Okay, okay. System. Okay.
yeah.
Let me tell you how this audio reviewing business works, right? As a let's say friend in the business, you're not supposed to tell people things are not good for the price. You're not supposed to tell people things don't sound good. You're not supposed to mention ethics and morale or any of that stuff. When somebody hands you something, when you write a review, and make sure you don't spend 5 months writing a review, okay? It has to be at least 2 hours.
Has
Okay?
to be 2 hours.
2 hours reviews. Write as many words as you can. Show the shit out of it. And that's how you get demo units. I think like personally, I think your approach to this audio review thing is completely wrong to trying to preach ethics and financial sensibility to your audience, which is completely ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah, I guess we just need to consume. That's the only point. And I need to start an Amazon affiliate thing.
Yes, of course.
That should work well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. People trust your word, so you have to be careful with what you say. I don't know. And also the other thing is I purchased most of the stuff that I'm reviewing, so I don't have like any obligations towards anything. I think the Luna and the E I received.
Right.
And even those like kind of tore apart. But it is what it is. I mean, if they don't want to send, it's fine. I can source headphones through other ways. I have a collection I can do write-ups on, and even then, like even a bunch of new releases don't really interest me in the sense of I want to review this thing because it's special. Like the things I typically review are things that strike me as different, and I think I can write something that's strong about it. So yeah.
You will say strong. I would like to say definitive. I think that would be the right word. I feel like not to like with the Dunu, Luna, and the Evo reviews aside, which I have not read.
Mhm.
I think like again, you also have a review on the comparison on the HD, the early and later production of the HD 800.
Yeah, that was also another thing where, people HD 800 is completely different. Then they went ahead and ruined it. And it's like, just because it's more rare doesn't mean it's better. So that was also like a similar point that I tried to bring forward. It's that they're
Right.
different, but they're not necessarily better or worse.
And like I honestly do appreciate, how the amount of time that you spent on these more comparative reviews. I guess that would be my like my category for you. Like that spends like way too much time, more than how a normal reviewer should, just in terms of comparing 4 different HE6s or comparing 2 different HD800s.
Yeah.
So obviously the Helios review is coming up in 6 months when you get them, I guess. That would be the timeline.
Yeah.
Any other okay, let's see, do we have any other questions?
Let's see. There's a question about, is ADX 5000 the best headphone, from Drifting Bunnies?
It is. And if you disagree with me, that's wrong.
I disagree.
How much is it, do you
I think it's 2,000 US
well, it's
MSRP.
1,500.
1,500. That's less than I remember.
That doesn't make it more. I mean, like, MSRP is never like real price, right?
That's true.
No, but nobody ever buys things for MSRP. That's silly. So how does 1,500, like, how about this? How much should ADX 5000 cost to you? New, not used.
I would say like 1.2 to 1.5 thousand. I think that would be fair.
You would buy it.
I wouldn't. That doesn't mean I would buy it.
Okay. So let's say you're scouring HiFiMAN, and how much should a used one cost for you to buy it instantly?
The thing is, I don't necessarily have like a big appeal to purchase it, but sometimes things are so cheap, then you're just like,
right.
whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
$900, 750, 800.
Oh wow,
US.
that's hurtful.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, it's a good headphone, and I'm not saying it as a way to say, oh, it's worth that much money. It's just I don't necessarily have a specific purchase it. So if you're gonna make me purchase it,
I'm not gonna make you purchase. I'm just saying you're looking at the HiFi Classify and say that you stumble upon the ADX 5000. You have to think. You look at the price. You have to think to yourself, it would be crazy for me to not to buy this, right?
Yeah, but the other thing is, because if you look at it and it's 750 to 800, you consider it a free demo, essentially. Because if you buy it for that price, you can resell it and lose no money.
Okay.
So it's like,
okay, how about this? For comparison, how much would you buy a used HD800 for?
Depending on condition, like up to 750 US, up to 800.
Fine, point proven.
Depending on condition, of course. Yeah. But yeah, I'll just keep scouring through the. Do you plan to review LZ A4 Pro or GS Audio Mono?
No idea what that is.
It's like, I know LZ is like a Hi-Fi IEM brand. I don't know. Maybe they're good. I have no idea. I never tried that. Oh, I think Ant answered that. It's cool of him.
We don't do cheap Hi-Fi here.
I mean, I like I started off with Hi-Fi. So I have a bit of respect for it.
I think like everybody starts out with like Hi-Fi, but like since you only have like 8 reviews on your blog, that
one of them was Hi-Fi, by the way, the QKZ VK4, like before the hype train even.
I mean, like, so is the Dunu Luna, so you tend to forget that's Chinese as well.
Yeah, it is Chinese and it's glorious.
All right.
I'm just going through them. LC4 review comparing with HE. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of money and time to. Let's see. Oh, Taranku. My favorite system moment was when Redditors said passing a FLAC for 320 test was named possible. System casually proved it was possible with the results. I mean, it is possible. There is a difference. It's just a very small difference.
I mean, there is one. How did you prove that?
There was like an ABX test, like a blind
the
AB
website,
test.
right?
Yeah. I think I got like 92 or like something like that.
What did you use to pass that test?
I think I was using. Okay, that was like in 2018. I was using a shit Asgard 2 with HD800. off like a shit Modi 2 or something like that. So the main difference is in the upper treble.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's and I mean once you hear that, it's like it's there. You don't. Yeah.
And like in going into that, I think it is passable for but you're just looking for that one note in the upper frequency, right?
Yeah, or like some snares sound a
Yeah.
bit weird because
Yeah,
they
exactly.
have like
You're
some parts of
listening
the
to the like the upper octave, like the like the third like percussion when it goes through that treble extension. So
That's
like
it. Like cymbals. Cymbals are the
yeah.
dead giveaway,
Yeah, so
I find.
when you hit that crash symbol, like the MP3 file will cut it off because it doesn't go up that high.
Exactly.
But like the problem with that is that um you need like very good gear. Um
That's true.
well, you need
But
like a standard set of gear. Like you
yeah,
need
up
like
to like 20K.
yeah,
Um,
like that extends and you need to be able to hear that extension, right? So I am of the opinion. I am of the opinion that for enjoyment purposes that it doesn't really matter.
it does, and you know, for me, and I hear it, it doesn't really matter for enjoyment purposes
No,
either.
because you have to
So,
look for that one note.
exactly.
Because like you
The-
look
the-
for that cymbal crash, the cymbal crash is not the initial hit.
yeah.
It's that when it goes to a higher octave after the cymbal crashes. Like then you
Mhm.
hear that like, oh, it doesn't have that extension because MP3 cut off at a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's basically it.
and it that's not like, for the most part nobody really listens for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not you know, you're not you're not going to actively look for it. It's really on direct A and B that it shows up, and it's a non-issue. I think the number one thing is just having good mastering, basically, because different, let's say, streaming services will have like poor masters of certain albums, good masters, and I think like the well mastered ones are gonna bring you the largest difference. So yeah, there's a difference, but it's small. We shouldn't worry too much about it. Let's see.